Welcome to the House of Vlog. I am your host, the Vlog Father.
You know, I'm 20 years old, and being that age, being a fifth of a century on this planet, I can say with near complete certainty that there are times I've lived through that just don't exist anymore. Times that are impossible to recapture, places and faces and things that just aren't around. They've just vanished. It's weird to think about. Then again, I do look back at the past with a kind of wistful reverie, something which I wasn't able to indulge in during my younger years, because now I can be nostalgic for things like Davy's dance blog with the entire college humor staff from 2009. Dang, if that isn't a hit of nostalgia to the gut, I don't know what is. That said, while college humor is certainly a bastion of the internet age, that's not what we're here to talk about today, because there are a lot of pioneers of the early internet who I feel go underappreciated. One of these incredibly prolific geniuses of the early web was Clark Saturn, otherwise known as Clark Nelson, the leader of an obscure Denver prolific electronic music collective whose output could rival that of Aphex Twin or Daft Punk, LD50. I have here an article from Westward, the Denver magazine, from March 13th, 1997. As far as I can tell, this is the only time that LD50 was covered in any major news outlet in any detail. I don't think most people understand electronic music, says Clark Nelson, aka Clark Saturn, a vocalist and programmer for Denver's LD50. Some people think that you turn on the keyboard like a Casio and press the start button, and it just does its own little thing. LD50 delivers far more than that. Saturn, keyboardist/programmer Ricon Helmut, born Robert Betts, bassist Gobo, Chris DeFoya, and guitarist/ambient sound terrorist Mark Melville, are among a wave of musicians using electronics to expand upon the standard guitar-based drum sound associated with rock. Their goal is to blend a human touch, symbolized by live, organic performances, with the tools of technology. And unlike those electronics freaks whose shows consist of little more than pushing buttons, these guys actually know how to play musical instruments. Based on that description, you might assume that Clark Saturn is nothing more than a member of some obscure electronic music collective from the 90s who hasn't been reported on since 1997. Well, if you assumed that, you would be wrong. Mr. Clark Saturn is a bona fide jack of all trades whose output continues to this day. And I don't think I've ever come across a story this intriguing, this captivating, or this out there.
Thanks, Amanda. Hello, Rocket Boomers. Let's see what the weather looks like today.
If there would be one literary or historic figure I could compare Clark to, it would probably be Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, in that Clark weaves his way through the ages with such a casual naivety. You see him on public access in the 90s, you see him on commercials in the 2000s, and you see him now. And throughout all these eras, per se, of his career, he really doesn't care that much. Now, this isn't to say that he takes what he has for granted. He's clearly very grateful for the positions he gets. But what I mean to say is that he is a figure who transcends time and space and goes way, way further back than a lot of people do. There are two ways to look at Clark Saturn's career. One, you can look at him as the Forrest Gump archetype who gets caught up in affairs through outrageous circumstance, far beyond his understanding and far beyond what he ever prepared for. Then you can look at him as the kind of buckaroo bonsai archetype. The fellow who's so over-capable that it borders on the ludicrous. Not only is he a rock star, he's also a vlogger, and he's a gosh darn German teacher, and it's like, my gosh, how does this guy have so much untapped talent, so much untapped potential? I've seen video essay upon video essay about the members of the FaZe clan, Sam Pepper, even Fred Figglehorn. But believe it or not, Fred Figglehorn was shitting in diapers when this absolute behemoth of internet history came onto the scene. Fred Figglehorn is a youngster compared to Clark Saturn. If you believe Lucas Cruikshank defines the early internet, or if you think Anthony Padilla defines the early internet, wait until you hear the wacky story of Clark Nelson of LD50 and just the bonkers shit that this guy got up to. That said, I was able to get in touch with Mr. Saturn and arrange an interview with him where he would answer several of my questions over video, which is pretty gosh darn exciting. So give it up, because this is the first time in decades that Clark Saturn has been given an interview, and we here at Nicholas Studios were able to secure a scoop. Darn, that alliteration is tricky. Question 1. Which musical project you've been involved in has had the largest impact on electronic music at large? Electro Dingus 2046, LD50, or PH10? Also, which one is your favorite?
Alright, so the question is about which musical act I've been involved with had the most influence on electronic music at large. And I'd say it's a really hard question, because I don't know. I mean, okay, so one way to look at it is like PH10, we were able to like put out a couple records and do a tour in Europe with True Mystic Sound System, and in some ways that made us, of all the acts I've been associated with, they were probably the most successful. And of course, Rico and Helmet continues to make PH10 and has branched off and done his own thing there. But of course, after PH10 I was in Socks and Sandals. Now Socks and Sandals was basically part of the minimal techno scene in New York City in the early aughts, and we put out some vinyl. I'd probably by numbers, maybe it sold more and had more geographical reach than the early PH10 records before Recone split off. I'm not sure how to measure the influence, but I will say that I've enjoyed making music since I was a kid. I've been in all kinds of different bands ever since I can remember, and it's one of the things that brings me great pleasure, whether or not it has any influence on others. And I'm continuing to make some stuff. I'm hoping to put some new stuff out in 2022, so
PH10 was a group formed after the breakup of LD50. Very interesting stuff. And Mr. Saturn is still working on musical projects today. I find this sort of thing incredibly interesting. This is the sort of stuff you just don't hear about unless you go looking for it. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Now, with a lot of internet people, especially those in the late 90s and early 2000s, their presence has dried up almost completely. Either they've got successful jobs and don't have time to hang out on the internet anymore, or they've died, or perhaps they just have forgotten what the internet is, or assumed that the internet was only something that existed for a brief period in the 2000 to 2002 range and then dried up, or that the internet isn't what they remember it is, or that they'd have too hard a time getting onto the new internet. Not so with Mr. Clark. Clark is absolutely online today. His newest video on his YouTube channel is a month old at the time of recording, and he has posted several tracks from LD50 to SoundCloud. These are tracks from 1997, 1995, 20 years old, over 20 years old, and this guy is still releasing them. You would be hard-pressed to find someone this dedicated to the craft. Question 2. Which commercial you've appeared in took the most dedication to the role?
Okay, so questions about which role in a commercial I was most dedicated to. As you probably know, commercial acting is a lot of takes, very short takes, and often doesn't require a ton of dedication to the role. But there was one that sticks out in my mind that I really enjoyed doing. That was in and around Madrid, Spain, for about a week. And it was about two guys who are at a party, and they go to grab the last beer. It's Estrella Damm beer. And neither of them will let go of it. And so it covers their lives over the next 20 years as they never let go of this bottle of beer. And it goes through all these different scenarios.
It's like strawberry wine. You're 16, you're beautiful, and you're mine.
One meets a woman, they get married, the other one's there holding on to the beer the whole time, cutting the wedding cake and stuff. And, all these different scenarios. And one of them was we're scuba diving, right? And I come up out of the water and I've got a fish flopping in my mouth or something like that. And there's all kinds of these scenarios, but it was a lot of fun to make. And it was a lot of continuity, but over a span of 20 years. So I had to age and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a ton of fun to make. So that's the one that really sticks out in my mind.
Thank gosh for the Wayback Machine. I've downloaded several contemporary reviews of Clark's work, because not only is Clark a member of LD50, whose music is some of the finest stuff I think I've ever heard, not to mention exceedingly Denver, he's also the owner and operator and star of his own little vlog called Zip Zap Zop, named after, of course, the dramatic arts game of the same title. In fact, zipzapzop.com is still a registered domain name, and you can still visit it and find Clark there as carefree as ever, although, of course, these were downloaded from the Wayback Machine. Contemporary reviews. Podguide.tv says, how to describe Zip Zap Zop. If you've ever spent time with a good mate completely stoned out of your head talking about the existential deepness of Frank Zappa until 4 a.m. in the morning, well, you'll feel right at home with this one. Hosted by Clark Saturn, this is the podcast that will stop your iPod getting the munchies. And no, I have no idea what that really means. It just sounded funny. Question 3. In retrospect, how does it feel to have been at the forefront of vlog culture?
In retrospect, how does it feel to be at the forefront of vlog culture? I don't consider that I was at the forefront of vlog culture by any means. I participated in it. I did an audition for Rocket Boom, which was doing amazing things early on. And then there were all these fantastic vloggers around New York and all over the place that were doing amazing things. And I jumped on board when I didn't get the Rocket Boom weatherman gig. I just was like, oh, I can make a daily, or I think I was doing a daily for a while, or weekly or something, the Zip Zap Zop vlog, and I had a lot of fun with it for a period of time, and I made a lot of good friends, and I'm happy to be associated with a lot of these same people today through various social media and so on. Yeah, it was just something that was like, it was fun. I had some time. I was doing auditions and acting and so on, and it was a fun sort of creative outlet for me. Yeah.
People have claimed that Cruikshank is the best well-documented online individual. I would argue with that. I think Clark is definitely the most well-documented individual online, at least of the 2000s. Very few vlogs from that period still exist or are still up. Most have been deleted or archived or unlisted because the people behind them don't want them to be seen. Well, Clark here is an example of someone who appreciates his past and can reconcile with it. And that's why the Zip Zap Zop vlog is one of the most archived pieces of 2000s media we have today. Check it out.
Oh, excuse me. And I would like to be able to... Well, they don't smell too bad. It was only like 2 days. And they don't taste very...
Question 4. What's the craziest behind-the-scenes story you have for any of your short films?
Okay, so the craziest story from any of the short films that I've been a part of, and I've been a part of other people's short films, like students at NYU and Columbia, that were really fun to do, and also made a couple of short films with friends. And well, there are really two main ones, you know, that stick out. One is American Walker, which is about a couple of speed walkers. It was super fun, and there were probably some of the best things where we went all over New York City, Manhattan mostly, filming that, just guerrilla style, you know. And, you know, we're in like Times Square, speed walking down Times Square, like zooming in and out of all the people and, you know, thick with people and all the lights and the TV screens and so on at Times Square. And that was super memorable. But really, I think the most strange one was the potato chip tail that I made with Heidi Scherson, who you probably will know as well from her work on Toxic Avenger. And Heidi and I had met at a commercial shoot, and you know, enjoyed making jokes and so on and hanging out. And so we came up with this idea to make this sort of guerrilla style film called A Potato Chip Tale that took us to our nation's snack food mecca of Hanover, Pennsylvania. And it was so much fun. My buddy Dave Johnson cruised with us and helped with the camera work, and we did a lot of really fun, crazy things. Especially because Heidi is particularly outgoing and fearless. And so there's one time where there was a marching band practicing at like a high school as we were driving back through New Jersey or Pennsylvania or somewhere. And we got out in our like outfits we were wearing for filming, and just like we're dancing around, you know, and, you know, acting like goofs, and that was sort of it's not in the film, it's an extra that's out there. But also we stayed in this little motel in downtown Hanover, Pennsylvania, and we got a room in the basement, and it was really kind of a dank room. And it just so happened there was another room off of it, there was a door that opened that went into this like underground, like dirt floor storage room or something. It was like there was just pipes and dirt and stuff up back there and whatnot. And so we ended up using it. We used a bunch of it, like recorded a bunch of pieces that went into the actual film there. And
her estranged, snack abusive father.
And there were a lot of sort of edgy, kind of risky things. Like we'd go to restaurants and, I think we went to an IHOP or something like that, some kind of a, diner or something, and we're filming in there, and, we got kicked out of several places, including, the potato chip factory. And we did some things that were like using hidden cameras, like we had a tie with a camera built in, and some other like hidden camera type stuff. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and it was definitely on the weird side.
Now, you probably thought it stopped there. You thought maybe Clark was a member of this obscure electronic group. You thought maybe he ran a vlog that was one of the most defining vlogs of the early internet. Well, you'd be wrong there too, because Mr. Clark is also in a ton of commercials. And no, I'm not talking obscure all-you-can-eat buffet commercials or obscure furniture store commercials. I'm talking mainstream commercials that were on nationwide. This is incredible.
I was on fire, man.
Yo, come on home, it's cool.
My internet service is evil.
Thank you.
Question 5. How do you believe the vlog industry has changed over the past decade or so?
This would be a great question for somebody who's really still participating in vlogging, vlog culture. I don't really consider myself that. But I will say that one of the things that I noticed over the last decade or two has been as YouTube grew and grew and grew, and a lot of content creators got into YouTube, which I never really kind of did until after the fact. But a lot of folks, like, it was interesting to see how folks all of a sudden can like make a living off of this. And like, there are folks who've got like hundreds of thousands and millions of subscribers, folks who are like playing video games and talking about it. And then all these like millions of kids are watching it. That was certainly an interesting phenomenon. And then of course there are the influencer culture, which, not really my scene either, but that's kind of been a big deal in that whole realm as well, I guess.
It needs to be kept in mind, to put this into perspective, that when Clark Saturn started off vlogging, it was a completely new frontier. YouTube was barely a site. It was in its infancy. In fact, I believe some of his earliest vlogs are from well before the foundation of YouTube. So we're talking 2003, 2004, when a digital camera had a tiny amount of memory on it. But he went at it anyway, like the absolute mad lad he is. And what we've got are some of the craziest vlogs of the 2000s. From yet another link on an archive of zipzapzup.com, this one from videoblogging.info. What is video blogging? Video blogging is a new form of expression centering around posting videos to a website and encouraging an audience response. It is the next step from text blogging and podcasting. Blogging being with text and podcasting being with audio. Even then, podcasting was a new term, and it needs to also be remembered, of course, that podcast is a portmanteau of iPod and broadcast. So the earliest podcasts were created for an iPod. Question 6. Given your prominence as a figure of the Denver scene, how would you describe the overall atmosphere of 1990s Denver?
Okay, so the question is about my prominence in the Denver scene in 1990s Denver. Again, I don't think I was a prominent figure in the Denver scene in the 90s. I was definitely there. I definitely did some stuff, and I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing with LD50, and at my own solo project, Electrode Dingus 2026, and made a lot of great friends all over the place. But 90s Denver was just, for me, it was a magic time. I had a dream job, teaching German over TV, which I just really loved. I was able to be really creative and have a lot of fun with it. And the kids were just super rewarding to work with. And then, but the scene, it was like, it was a very different Denver scene, I guess. But I don't know, just things that come to mind are like things like the acid jazz at City Spirit Cafe. That was just a weekly, like Tuesday night, just fantastic party. There were just so many great club nights like that going on. And I mean, there's places that have closed down since then. El Chapultepec, I used to love to go to El Chapultepec. Saw Eddie Harris play there before he died, got his autograph on a record. It was fantastic. You know, I used to get away with some stuff that you probably wouldn't get away with now, I guess, maybe. Like, I mean, I had a lot of privileges, right? I'm the recipient of a lot of privileges that need to be acknowledged, and like I got away with stuff that I'm sure a lot of other people might not have, especially people of color. For example, friends and I used to bring TVs we would find along the side of the road, put out for trash or whatever, and like we'd bring them down by like the railroad tracks and just like videotape, like smashing them, like throwing them, breaking them, smashing them, and stuff like that. And or we would just go down by the train tracks and just like bring, you know, sticks and things and like make music like on the sides of the trains and things like that. And just adventuring. I just remember so much like adventuring around Denver, especially around the area around like Union Station, which of course now is all developed and entirely changed like decades later. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun like documenting on video and going around, just kind of being creative and making music, making art, and having fun.
From squidoo.com, Clark is funny, very funny. Without video blogging, the world would be a much sadder place. Winky emoticon. Clark learned about video blogging when he tried out to be Rocket Boom's weather reporter. He didn't get that job, but he did start up a vlog. Lucky us. Lucky us indeed. You might think that the only band Clark of Saturn was ever in was LD50, which by the way stands for Lethal Dose 50. However, you would be mistaken, because prior to being in LD50, he had a project called Electro Dingus, and these songs are also uploaded to his YouTube channel. We're talking shit that's so early, it's practically at the big bang of the internet, the genesis of the whole thing. And here's this guy making songs, and he doesn't even know it. It's wild. It's wild to watch these things. He's there from decades ago, but they're just in plain sight. They're just right on YouTube. It's mental. Question 7. How many installments of Sonic Aroma are there, and which one is the best in your opinion?
About Sonic Aroma, I believe there were 4 episodes or things of Sonic Aroma that we released. There were either 3 or 4 Sonic Aromas that we created and put out on Denver Cable Access. And I'm not sure if maybe only one of them is on my YouTube channel still. I'm going to look back at the VHS tapes I have of that and see what I can find. But there were 3 or 4 episodes, and I don't remember exactly which one was my favorite. They were all pretty great. But I think maybe the 4th one stands out in my mind as being one of the best, but I haven't seen them in a long, long time. So I'd be interested in what you have to say about that.
As for Saturn, he came aboard shortly after the original threesome found a tape by his previous project, Electro Dingus 2026, dangling precipitously from the handle of a urinal at the Mercury Cafe. I was like, hell, a free tape, Gobo notes. We figured if it was no good, we could always record over it. Instead, the performers fell in love with the music, which sounds like Sun Ra wired through the veins of Brian Eno. A lengthy search for Saturn followed, but all involved agree that it was worth the effort. Just 2 weeks after Saturn joined the fold, the newly expanded LD50 began recording a demo tape that quickly blossomed into an impressive self-titled EP. There you have it. A tape found on the handle of a urinal led to Saturn joining LD50. That's how he joined the group. This group found one of his tapes dangled over the handle of a urinal, and they spent months searching him out, and finally they found him. Why isn't this stuff talked about as much as Sam Pepper or Jake Paul? These are the real questions here.
Chris from LD50, and I were at a show, and Clark had put one of his Electro Dingus tapes in the bathroom on the urinal, and we were both relieving ourselves and figured free tape. I took it home and liked it, and tried to contact Clark a couple of times through email and tried to go to his webpage, but I guess everything had just changed at that time, and then finally actually broke down and wrote a letter. And Clark came to see one of our shows to consider playing a show with us, so he came to see us, and then found out we were looking for a singer, and decided he wanted to. I was all over that. And that's how we brought Clark in LD50, and then as that fell apart, Clark and I developed PH10.
8. As a key figure in public access broadcasting, what are some intricacies of the medium?
Okay, so a question about public access. Well, first of all, I came into public access almost by accident in a way. Like, I applied for a job with the Denver Public Schools to teach over 4 schools at once using the TV channel, their public access channel, but I didn't really have experience with it. I just was kind of a geek and loved technology and cameras and stuff. So it was a dream job for me, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't really know anything about it. I'd never done it before. And so it was just largely an experiment in a way to do all that. And then, of course, I was doing things like the Ambient Lunch Club, mixing video and stuff while I would eat lunch, which was a lot of fun. And the lighting wasn't great, and the sound wasn't great. And there were lots of, it wasn't broadcast quality by any means, but it was workable, and the students were able to learn a lot, I think. And then what ended up happening was later, like several years after I started teaching on cable access, and that was all live, like it was all done live. Like there was literally a box in my studio where I would flick it on, turn on the switch, and then the channel went live, and then whatever I was feeding to it was what was on the TV there. And students could talk to me with microphones over the telephone lines. Anyway, later than that, I went down to the actual Denver cable access like video station and did their courses so I could become like a producer or whatever. And that was cool because then I was like, oh, now I'm actually learning the real deal, and of course, cable access, it's great because it's like a democratization of public airwaves, which is absolutely phenomenal and absolutely necessary. But there is sometimes a little bit of a, there are some things associated with cable access. For example, the low production quality that's typically a part of it. You look at Between Two Ferns is kind of a takeoff on that, and, what I ended up doing with it was basically taking a lot of video footage that I'd been recording around Denver and with my friends in my band LD50 to then edit it all together and then basically release it on cable access as an edited product. So I wasn't really, filming it in the studio. And that was kind of a different take. But there was a Sonic Aroma series about LD50 that several others in LD50 and I kind of creatively contributed to and put together and then put out on cable access. So yeah, but I highly recommend anybody who's even remotely interested to go to the cable access station, take the courses you need, and start making stuff and just put it out there.
For macuser.co.uk, Les Blogs 2.0 is probably the most zeitgeisty conference of the year, combining the Web 2.0 buzz with the blogging phenomenon sweeping all before it. In part 1 of our coverage of the Paris conference, our man on the ground, Bernhard Warner, scouts out what hot on the floor. It is the 3rd of December, 2005, if of course you follow the Gregorian calendar. and Dude is perplexed. Dude wants to know if October 2011 really will be a moment of reckoning in world history, as the Mayans foresaw centuries ago. The weblog, or blog, appears to be the preferred forum for self-expression these days, equipping millions of netizens with a virtual soapbox and megaphone. Whether you use the blog to rail against the war in Iraq or chronicle your cat's diet, who cares? The important thing is that it's yours. And you are not alone. As of early December, there were 22.5 million blogs in existence, and according to David Sifry, CEO of blogger search engine Technorati.com, the so-called blogosphere is doubling every 5.5 months. Blog readership is even higher. In other words, somebody out there shares your views on the war or just wants to read about your cat. But the blog, for some, may not be enough. Words and pictures are fine, but to attract a big audience, sound and video must be added, and voila, the blogs of tomorrow will be an all-singing, all-dancing form of citizen-inspired entertainment, art, product demonstrations, or travelogues. Isn't that prophetic? Isn't that interesting? Why don't more people talk about this? 9. Which segment of your vlog do you look back most fondly upon?
The question about which segment of the vlog I look back most fondly on, Zip Zap Zop went through a lot of change over time. Just keep trying new things and doing various things. There were different. You could almost look back at it and see there are sort of different periods where there was either different technology involved or different, there's one period where at the end there's like this flower time lapse that says constantly changing, and then that was sort of a middle to later side of the Zip Zap Zap vlog. And so there were the early ones, and there were those, and then there were ones later on that were even more experimental. It was like kind of music that I made and just kind of like weird effects and so on. And reading the Tao Te Ching was always a highlight.
Good morning from ZipZapZap.com. I'm the host, Clark Saturn.
So I don't know which I would say most fondly. I mean, one thing that comes to mind was that I did involve a lot of parents and parental types in there that had some, I think, that were kind of memorable to me. Like when my mom was on and she had just gone through chemo and had cancer, and she was talking about that. Or my birth mother was on and talked about, some things related to being my birth mother. I think my father-in-law was in there once. And anyway, those are some of the fun things. And some of the guests that I had on there, like Bree Pettis, who at the time was doing a vlog called I Make Things. And he also had a vlog on like art education and so on, and a media vlog, We Are the Media. And then he went on to like write for Maker Magazine and started up that MakerBot company, and and now is doing all kinds of cool things with like tooling things and building things and so on. So anyway, he was a guest, and we went to the MoMA and did a Naked Friday episode. That was a lot of fun. So there were just a lot of great memories there. I guess most of them kind of center around some of the people I got to meet and work with and interview. And then, of course, I just had fun with, some, prank calls and making music for it. And like I said, reading the Tao Te Ching. And it was just kind of a creative outlet for me, because I was auditioning for a lot of stuff and taking classes, improv, and, the various things, acting, stand-up, and so on. And nothing really was sticking super sticky. And so this was just a good, outlet I could do at home that was kind of fun and I was enjoying. And eventually I just stopped doing it. Yeah.
Okay, so Clark of Saturn was found by LD50 after they got one of his tapes dangling from a urinal in the Mercury Cafe, and he's in commercials. And he ran his own vlog. Is there anything else this guy hasn't done? Yes, actually, there's something that he has done that we haven't mentioned yet. The guy's in a ton of short films, which are absolutely evocative of the era.
Kip Kinkle is a bastard, that's all I have to say. He's a bastard and he's going down.
Oh, you know, they're playing Quantum Master 4 tonight. It's a special screening. The director's here.
A potato chip tale.
And this still isn't all. The guy's on public access, like Denver Public Access. He's on it, and some of the most grainy, low-resolution video I've ever seen. But it carries that same energy. He's so enthusiastic in 50 pixels by 50 pixels. My God, this man has done everything. He has lived a complete life.
They call me Clark Saturn.
Finally, question 10. What advice would you give to any young up-and-coming artists looking to make it big in the Denver arts field today?
Okay, so as to what advice I would give to any young up-and-coming Denver artists, or any artist really, who wants to make it big, first piece of advice I'd say is don't listen to me, because I'm not really an artist. I've never made it big in anything, and but I do think that I have been somewhat of a good example in terms of somebody who's not really made it big or anything, but who's managed to have a good time, and I think do some relatively good work and enjoy myself and meet a lot of cool people and hopefully, you know, make things slightly more funny or enjoyable or something for some people on Earth. But yeah, I think that's the key. I think that I would say to like my kids or anybody else is just like, just do it, you know, just keep putting it out there. And even like with Zip Zap Zop, it's like, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't super great or anything, but it was just something I was doing and I enjoyed doing it at the time. And I had a little audience and I think, you know, some of them enjoyed it. And hopefully, you know, I made a connection with some people. And I think that's the best thing that you can really do in a way is make a connection, you know. Yeah, just make a connection and keep doing it, and you know, and do it for yourself, not just for like, you know, a particular audience. I mean, that's kind of my thing, right? I've done it just because I've enjoyed it and do it for myself, and so I haven't really said like, or you know, like, oh, I'm doing this genre only, like, you know, I'm just gonna make, you know, drum and bass only from here on out, and like dedicated myself to anything like that, which is part of the reason, one of the many reasons why I haven't made it big, I'm sure, in any of this, is dabbling. And so if you don't want, you know, if you really do want to make it big, I'd say don't dabble so much as really delve into your one thing or your two things or whatever, and really just dive in, you know. But do it for yourself and enjoy it. And, you know, time should feel like it's kind of standing still when you're doing it, ideally. And just, you know, keep doing it.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Saturn's responses to some interesting questions I cooked up on the spot for him. You might be wondering, why haven't I heard of this guy? Well, I think Mr. Saturn's relative obscurity goes to show a theory I've had about the internet for a long time, which is that often the really dumb shit like Jake Paul gets pushed to the top, and the really good shit like Clark Saturn's vlogs get pushed to the bottom, even though they're more historically significant and way more entertaining. This is how the internet works. Not sure why. I'm not a computer programmer. I don't know how algorithms work. All I know is that somehow this is how the internet works. It pushes the really overrated stuff to the top. Now you're probably wondering, how did I find out about this eclectic genius? Completely by accident. This is the sort of rabbit hole you can just stumble into. And not the cheap kind of rabbit hole, like Dark Side Phil, or Wings of Redemption, or Chris Chan, or Empress Teresa. Boring. I want to hear about Clark Saturn. The westward article continues. In many cases, the sample's LD50 features are more explicit than its lyrics, which on the EP consist largely of barked syllables arranged into a Dadaist collage. What often makes the final cut, Gobo claims, is a misinterpretation of what someone wanted. The Melville-pinned Tower of Babel, for instance, contains monologues, recited in 4 different languages, French, German, Japanese, and Italian. The result is a wall of glossolalia that's haunting and beautiful. I couldn't put it better myself. Mr. Saturn is the kind of captivating figure who you might assume at first glance has attained unparalleled growth and success in recent decades. After all, you look at the early web and see it as a melting pot of opportunity and potential. Fred Figglehorn went on Nickelodeon. Smosh became a multi-billion-dollar media empire. Machinima went from a hobby that a couple college nerds did in their flipping basement to a flipping company owned by Disney and shit. Well, what happened to Mr. Saturn? I'll tell you what happened to him. He currently has 46 subscribers. That's right. This guy who's been making music and videos and vlogs since the mid-90s only has 46 subscribers. This is insane. So I'm gonna ask you, the viewer, to do something important because I think he deserves more than that. Go over and subscribe to him. Check him out. Watch his videos. They're really, really entertaining and good and really, really fun. It's also pretty crazy to think that you can have only 46 subscribers on YouTube and yet have an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to you, which just goes to show how Wikipedia's notability guidelines tend to favor people who came onto the scene earlier, which is something I've always wondered about. I don't have a Wikipedia page myself, but in 20 years I probably will, even if I never do anything notable. Oh, there it goes. I knew it was going to go sooner or later. Well, enjoy the shadow show. This guy knows how to make videos, and as somebody who talks into a camera a bunch myself, I gotta say, I respect the hustle of my forebears, and I think it's very important to acknowledge the pioneers of the genre. This guy is a vlogging renaissance man. He is what vlogs should be. He is the epitome of the vlog lifestyle. If you thought Casey Neistat was the definitive vlog creator, well, welcome to a whole new game, baby. Clark Saturn from zipzapzop.com is actually how a blog ought to be. Let me tell ya.
I'd like you to meet Uber Knuber.
Bin Uber Knuber. Uber Knuber.
You'll notice that in Mr. Saturn's vlogs, there's nothing inherently eye-catching or clickbaity. His skits are goofy, sure, but they're not like Gold Digger Prank or I Buy My Friend a $25,000 Tesla. They're meant primarily to be entertaining fun. And I think that's something that YouTube, despite its name, meant to capture the idea of broadcasting oneself as a kind of TV show of sorts. I think that idea of YouTube has kind of been lost over the ages. People don't broadcast themselves in their own TV shows anymore. Now they broadcast themselves in 10-minute long videos where they walk around their mansion and talk about how they just bought a pet tiger and they can't wait to show off their new boxing match that they've just scheduled with the Ace family. And I think this sort of thing, well, it does make a lot of money for YouTube and for the people involved, really isn't that entertaining. Ask yourself, how many Jake Paul videos have you seen that you actually enjoyed? Like, how many are actually fun? Does this guy actually have talent, or does Clark Saturn have more talent? Like, don't tell me that Clark Saturn doesn't have more talent. The guy knows fluent German, and he's been in, like, multiple bands from the 90s until now. Jake Paul didn't even get his start until, like, 2011. You mean to tell me Clark Saturn doesn't have inherently more talent than Jake Paul? I didn't want to find Mr. Saturn, but somehow, through some incredible circumstances, I did. and my perception of the 2000s internet was changed drastically. Here's a guy who seems like, why isn't he more well known about? He left such a giant impact on so many people. He made so much stuff. How is this guy so obscure? How's that even possible, given the laws of probability? How does it work? I think perhaps Mr. Saturn never really hungered or lusted for an obscene amount of influence or power, because back in those days, it wasn't expected. You posted things to the internet. If they did good, fine. If they didn't do good, fine. It was just a fun hobby and a way to really use up your time. And I think nothing exemplifies that more than Ambient Lunch Club, one of Mr. Saturn's early weird ambient video collages, which is an absolutely breathtaking piece of art, which is possibly one of the most Denver things I've ever seen. And if I could have been there to witness this thing on Denver Public Access TV back in the 90s, it would have been an honor. I think it's a crime that fellows like Mr. Saturn aren't more well appreciated, more well known. Well, fellows like Nathan Barnatt are equally influential in their own right. I think Clark Saturn is definitely one of those fellows who completely let the early age of the internet pass him by without so much as a scratch. This guy is practically uncancelable at this point. This guy is a titan of the game. This guy knows where his head is at. And you should watch this guy's videos, because I said so, and I have good taste in shit. Again, I don't know how algorithms work, but I have noticed quite a bit that oftentimes the weirdest buzzwords get sent to the top of Google Trends, like parasocial relationship. This is the dumbest term ever. I have no idea who came up with it, but it was said, and then everyone got a hold of it, and then all of a sudden Bo Burnham is working it into his lame comedy routine. And just think about that for a moment, Bo Burnham, while we're on the subject. How come Bo Burnham can become a multi-millionaire and get his own Netflix comedy special just by singing a song about how he likes taking a shit on his piano back in 2008?
My shit's so hot, I'll leave your toilet bowl steaming.
My shit's so hot, I'll leave your toilet bowl steaming. My shit's so hot, I'll leave your toilet bowl steaming.
But Clark Saturn, back in 1995, is actually putting together thought-provoking light shows at Denver concert halls, and today nobody has heard of him. I think that's an intrinsic property of the internet. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's an legible soup that doesn't promote talent as much as it just does anything. It'll promote anything. It'll say anything is good, and as a result, everyone keeps making the videos about the same stuff. And for instance, a month after Bo Burnham's new Inside special dropped, there were like 50 videos about it, and I was like, I'm getting bored of hearing about this comedy special that I have no intention of watching anytime soon, because I don't have a Netflix subscription.
A girl's like a fridge, once a week you should stock it.
Meanwhile, Clark Saturn uploads all his vlogs for free onto the Internet Archive, and you can just watch them for free, and they're 100 times more entertaining than anything Bo Burnham can come up with on Inside. And it's like, you know, why aren't there more videos about Clark Saturn? Well, luckily, I'm the only one who delves into this type of obscure stuff, and I'm glad I do, because, I mean, this stuff is legitimately very interesting. But you have to think, you know, how many more Clark Saturns are out there, and how many of them get pushed down by the Bo Burnhams of the world, you know, to make the talent pool a little more tapered off at the top, you know? That's an interesting question to think about. I think it's important to appreciate not only the titans, like KSI and the Ace family, and make hour-long videos about them, but also the little people upon whose backs those later figures' empires were founded. I think Clark Saturn is a formative figure in the vlogging game. Without him, you wouldn't have Casey Neistat. You wouldn't have the Flipping Vlog Squad. You definitely wouldn't have David Dobrik, I can tell you that much right now. Clark Saturn completely laid out the whole game. Not only that, but some of these LD50 tracks, in case I haven't mentioned, are real bangers. Oh yeah, did I also mention he just makes music videos for music that's not even his? Holy shit, these music videos are flipping amazing.
Well, on a brighter note, commercial break.
The government has now banned the carrying of spears. Stop matter.
He's practically his own internalized MTV. I'm really glad I got the scoop on Clark Saturn and was able to interview him, and luckily he's still online and very approachable, which is interesting. You don't see many figures who are online in 1995 who are still as hip and savvy and willing to give interviews to the press. So kudos to Mr. Saturn for showing up in this video. Pretty hype. And again, please, be sure and subscribe to Mr. Saturn, because his videos are just something else. And I mean, it was just like a year ago that his short film from like 2003, A Potato Chip Tale, came out on his channel. It's flipping amazing. Who knows what other fun stuff this guy has laying around in his vaults, in his archives full of solid gold tier material. So go over and subscribe to him. Hopefully we can give him more subscribers than that phony Bo Burnham, who's overrated and stuffy, and his comedy is lame and bad, and he just works buzzwords like cognitive dissonance or parasocial relationship into his skits, and he doesn't even know what any of that means. Oh my God. He's not a psychologist. Why does he bring this stuff up? I'll tell you why he brings this stuff up. Because the internet tells him to. If the internet says to Bo Burnham, well, here's a little thing called cognitive dissonance, then Bo Burnham's like, oh, I should work that into my stand-up routine, because nobody else has talked about it. But the sad truth is, everyone's talking about it. And it's boring, and it's repetitive, and it gets old really fast. And, you know, maybe people who don't watch YouTube as much as I do don't notice this sort of thing, but when everyone is making the same 50 videos again and again about Bo Burnham's lame-ass new comedy special, God, it gets boring, it gets so old. Now that's happening for Squid Game. Every single month, every single flipping day, it's like, oh my gosh, a new thing about Squid Game. It's like, I'm never gonna watch Squid Game, for gosh sakes. I don't need to keep hearing about it. Tell me about something interesting. So thank gosh I found Clark Saturn, because his vlogs are just way more entertaining than anything on Netflix. Check him out. Subscribe to the guy. Flippin' brilliant. And I mean, I don't think I've ever done a piece of cross-promotion this heavy, you know, like endorsing someone on quite this level. But I think Clark Saturn seriously represents, like, when the internet was good. So, you know, I hear a lot of whining about, like, well, the internet used to be good. I wasn't really on the internet back when everyone says it was good. But if fellas like Clark Saturn were on back then, you know, it probably was really good. But he's still around. And he only has like 46 subscribers. So the thing is, the internet isn't going to be good again unless you watch the content that's good. So maybe watch his stuff and don't watch Bo Burnham so much. Maybe give Bo Burnham a rest and try out someone who's an actual pioneer of the internet.
I'll show you a clip. Bah!
Unlike Bo Burnham, who's only been on since like 2008, Clark Saturn has been on since the internet was invented. That's pretty gosh darn notable and worthy of discussion. And I mean, sure, he has a Wikipedia page, but like, no one knows who this guy is. It's freaking crazy. I mean, he has a Wikipedia page because he's been around since 1995 and been doing stuff since 1995, but at the same time, nobody knows who he is. Again, this is also good evidence that Wikipedia's notability guidelines are fundamentally broken. Because, I mean, how can this guy not even be that popular, but also have a Wikipedia page? It's just because he's been around for a long while. I'm not saying that's inherently wrong, but I do think it's interesting that someone can have less popularity than someone else and also have a Wikipedia page and have like 46 subscribers on YouTube. That's pretty wild. Now, I don't know how big the LD50 fan base is or anything, but I'm guessing it's tapered off a bit in recent years. Same with the PH10 fan base and whatnot. And that's a real shame, you know, because I think electronic music pioneers like PH10 and LD50 are one of the things that made Denver interesting back in the 90s. These days you don't see acts like that here in Denver. You know, really making it big, getting big tours at the Ogden, the Bluebird, the Fillmore, like that. It's all these fellas from out of town like Migos and Lil Pump. That's all I see, Bluebird and Fillmore. And, you know, I miss the days when, like, you could just start up a gosh darn electronic outfit and go to town. But Denver isn't really like that anymore, which is a real shame. So this isn't only the story of one man and his insane skill set and his insane rise to glory, and it's not just the story of how the internet prioritizes complete swill over solid rubies and emeralds, but it's also the story of how, bit by bit, Denver has become a less cultured metropolis, and there's less bands and less arts, and it's really kind of gone downhill, which is a shame, because, I mean, all the other cities have thriving art scenes. San Fran, Seattle, New York, you know, the whole 9 yards. But here in Denver, you just don't see bands like LD50 really rise to the top anymore. You don't see them. You don't see them have this meteoric rise to fame. And this isn't to say again that LD50 is like as big as Aphex Twin or something, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be, considering their music is almost as good or like just as good as Daft Punk or Boards of Canada or like Skrillex. Heck, it's way better than Skrillex, am I right? Anyway, be sure to go subscribe to Clark Saturn. I don't know how many times I can repeat this, but like seriously, the guy's a legend. Like, heck, if you subscribe like Jake Paul, just unsubscribe from Jake Paul and give that sub to Clark Saturn, because he's like a genius. I mean, frick. My gosh. So that's the crazy, almost unbelievable story of Clark Saturn, leader of LD50, and one of the greatest minds the early internet ever knew. I'll end it here with yet another quote from this Westward article from 1997, which again is one of the only resources I was able to pick up for this review. In presenting such experiments on stage, LD50 sometimes goes to extremes. The mates describe themselves as a Jim Rose circus with beats. Initially, Saturn preferred to perform behind a sheet so that he appeared to audiences in silhouette, but more recently, he has stepped forward in costumes that he uses while teaching German on a cable TV show called Tele Deutsch. Sprechen Sie Interaktiv, December 19th, 1996. A typical LD50 gig also includes found footage and an evolving light show that utilizes a smoke machine. The idea, Helmut says, is to give clubgoers something to look at, as opposed to just something to listen to. Stage shenanigans like these have helped LD50 attract a modest-sized cult following, but the musicians' ambitions don't stop there. We're the type of people who will always be playing music Saturn allows, and I think all of us would like to make a living at it. Yeah, Gobo concurs. I can see myself as a quadriplegic, clicking my teeth together, and still banging away. As can I. Times do change, and experiences do become irretrievable. However, I think there is something overwhelmingly genuine in Saturn Clark's presence here on the internet. Something authentic, something which is missing from a lot of today's videos and a lot of today's content, and something that you probably can't find anywhere else. Or maybe there are a million vlogs out there, just like Saturn Clark's, waiting to be found. It all depends on how curious you are, and how far you're willing to delve into these sorts of things, before you go completely insane.
Zippity zippity zop. Oh, hi.
Not only do I encourage you to go over to Mr. Clark's channel and check out some seriously good bangers from LD50, subscribe, I also encourage you to think about history and the people who came before you, and also the formative layout of the internet. The groundwork, if you will, the masonry, the cornerstone. Because, if nothing else, Zip Zap Zop is the kind of casual fun that is also a historical document, a time capsule into a time which no longer exists and never will exist again, but is there nonetheless, if you want to see it. I'm Nicholas R. Cicada. Good night.
happening, gonna be